On this morning, out of the 9th chapter of the book of Isaiah, as was read earlier, and I encourage you, if you have never read anything, notice I said anything, I want you to read the 9th chapter in its entirety. Especially when we consider the state of our country. Polarized, clannish, things that we never thought would rear their heads again now control the highest office in the land. But there's a word out of Isaiah, the 9th chapter, where it says, beginning at that first verse, but there will be no gloom for those who are in anguish. In the former time, he brought into contempt. Contempt means the feeling that a person or a thing is beneath one's consideration. Contempt of Congress, Article 2. The land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali. But in the latter time he will make glorious the way of the sea, the land beyond the Jordan, Galilee of the nations. The people who walked in darkness have seen a great light. Those who lived in a land of deep darkness, on them the light has shined. You have multiplied the nation. You have increased its joy. They rejoice before you as with joy at the harvest. As people exult when they get their share of the plunder. For the yoke of their burden and the bar across their shoulders, the rod of their oppressor, you have broken as on the day of Midian. That second verse, the people who walked in darkness have seen a great light. Those who lived in a land of deep darkness, on them light has shined. Just for the next few moments, I want to talk to you about the light that breaks through. My brothers and my sisters, in our lives, we sometimes sit behind a veil of darkness that we attempt to call living. We sit behind this veil as it shrouds our perceptions towards what is morally, ethically, and socially right. When we say things like war is wrong because too often poor people and those of color are the most affected. We sit behind a veil called darkness when the quest for personal wealth supersedes the fulfilling of the basic requirements for human life and decency, like access to affordable health care, safe and secure communities and living conditions for all people, and the transparency of governments to care for, as Jesus said, in as much as you've done unto the least of these. Out of Matthew 25:40. We live behind the cover of darkness that denies the reality that the number of students ages 3 to 21 who receive special education services under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act is 7 million students. or about 14% of all public education students, who among those receiving special education services, 34% are living with specific learning disabilities that are not being treated or being recognized. Yet our public education system, underfunded and under attack by our very government that's supposed to support it. A system that for 300 years we talked about education being the pathway to upward mobility in the United States. However, by the year 2025, if we hit a second administration, projections show that people of color will amount to 40% of the student population in a system that has not kept pace with the diverse needs of racial and ethnic groups, often underserving or inappropriately serving them, therefore feeding the prison pipeline. We live behind this kind of veil of darkness when we don't act or engage or call to task those that are supposed to do the work that they've been sent to do. A veil of darkness, of self-preservation by a Senate that hides behind the party and denies the evidence right in front of them. A veil of darkness where people cannot afford to live in the homes they lived in for decades because the rising property tax costs are going up and they're unable to keep pace with what they once did. We live behind a veil of darkness when our children cannot get adequate food in school that is nutritious, but instead they want to change it and give them foods that are soaked in oil and trans fat, leading to childhood obesity. And instead of going to the school board meetings, we sit home. I don't know about you, but the call of Jesus the Messiah is more than sitting behind veiled walls that become our darkness, but it's the call of Jesus Christ as the Messiah, the servant who redeems, who is the one that is the light, who transfers us out of the apathetic darkness to the illumination of God's call for justice, equality, and redemption. Jesus calls us out of darkness because Jesus is the light. And in our text this morning, I want to illustrate for us how the Lord frees us from the veil or the cloud of darkness. That the Lord is the one that illuminates us to new light, that it is God's revelation of God's only begotten Son that we find the courage to conquer the darkness and the fear and the bondage that allows us to walk in the freedom as a people that can praise God together while we work while it's day, because when night comes, nobody can work. My brothers and my sisters, it's no secret that God's intention is for all of us as a people to live in the freedom of God's promises through Jesus Christ, because we find that in the Word today. The text out of Isaiah chapter 9, the first to the 7th verses, introduces us to the servant narrative as a people who have come into a place of deep darkness, where the text begins recounting the trouble that the people of the northern kingdom of Israel found themselves in under Assyrian oppression during the year of 734. It was Assyria that sought to wipe them out and take their name out of the earth. Assyria was known for their harsh rules and subjugation through fear and intimidation. Therefore, the people had come to live in a constant state of fear. A fear of the unknown. That every time the door opened, because of the national climate, they were afraid of what would happen. A fear that in a crowd or on public transportation, that one would have to always listen for the next alert because they had no clue and they had to live in an environment of what next can happen. A fear in our schools for our children and for parents. If the school's number comes up on the caller ID, that we fear the next mass shooting. My brothers and my sisters, we live in a constant state of fear. A fear of what can happen in the next election. Because a foreign power interfered, we have to question whether or not the leader of the free world is either an agent or an incompetent boob being played like a toy. I'm talking about living under a cloud of fear every day of your life. This is the darkness that resonates also when we look at the current climate and what proceeds from the hearts of people where hate and anger is the lead on the nightly news, stoked by rhetoric that fuels it. We no longer trust one another. And because of it, the darkness overpowers us, causes a state of fear and panic. This darkness that tries to drown out the light of generations that we fall when we found ourselves in these predicaments and in this type of climate when we were oppressed and the specter of racism covered the land. In the midst of all of this, the Lord who was there, who proved that the Lord was on the side of the oppressed and subdued the power of the oppressor by God's love for this nation, that within the last 60 years we can identify the places where God was on our side and God fought for us and God's light shined. Even though there was a specter of darkness, we can identify places where God was able to open up doors and bring about change in our lifetime. We could see God's light as it broke through the indifference of a government that wanted to support separate but equal. And when that was torn down, tried to say it was states' rights to segregate and to subjugate. Yet the light of God shine on the Edwin Pettus Bridge. The light of God shine on Montgomery, Alabama. The light of God shine on the Poor People's Campaign. And I believe right now, no matter the darkness, the light of God is still able to shine. It can shine in our hearts that we can demonstrate that darkness does not rule us. It can shine in our hearts when we embrace the love of God and Jesus Christ. It can shine in our hearts when we love our neighbor and we love ourselves. God's light can shine. And we can allow it to break through. Text says the people who sat in darkness saw a great light. The people who lived under a shroud, overshadowed by the darkness of injustice, and they found themselves trying to make their way past the specter. They've ruled their lives. My brothers and my sisters, the children of God who've lived under the shroud of systematic injustice, that overshadows the lives of people. When we find ourselves where we cannot make a living wage, we retire, yet we cannot afford to stay home or get involved in any other things because we've got more debt than we do income. I want you to know today that the light of God still shines in the midst of your situation. The light of God represents God's glory that led God's people out of bondage. When God was a fire by night in the midst of their darkness, I want you to understand and know the God that was there when you had your job is the same God that will supply your every need in retirement. The God that was there to put you through school is the same God that will help you with your son or your daughter's student loan. I believe God's glory still breaks through the darkness. God's glory still leads God's children. No matter the darkness, no matter the contempt, God's glory breaks through. And my brothers and my sisters, God's glory, which is the light, is revealed in God's presence by God's unconditional love. The servant song that Isaiah speaks about when he says, the people who sat in darkness have seen a great light, is a metaphor not just for God's glory, but for God's return to take God's people out of the predicaments and the situations that we find ourselves in. Some of us over the last few years have found ourselves under the specter and the darkness of death. But God promised that even if you walk through the deep darkness, God would be there. When you felt like giving up, it was God. Even though the shadow of death lingered, God was the light that shined, that removed the darkness and lifted you up out of your situation. When you found yourself lonely and afraid because your mother and your father turned away from you, your best friend turned on you, God was there to peek through and let you see that the light of day was still there. That's why I'm glad this morning that the Bible says, weeping may endure for the night. That means you might cry at nighttime, but in the morning, God's glorious light shines, and you got joy. Joy to see the possibilities that God has in front of you. Joy to know God holds you and God keeps you. Joy to know God never left you by yourself in the night that breaks through. His name is Jesus, the light of the world. Jesus, the light in darkness. Jesus, the light that shines. I was singing deep in sin, but there was a light that shines far from the peaceful shore. His name is Jesus. That's why the psalmist said, the Lord is my light and my salvation. That means that God is the light that leads you safely to your destination. And the psalmist of Psalm 27 asked the question, whom shall I fear? I don't have to fear a Republican Party. I don't even have to fear a second term of number 45. Because there's a light that's going to shine beyond his days. There's a light that reveals God's justice and God's mercy for God's people. That the rod of the oppressor is broken by the light that breaks in. Thank God for the light this morning. Thank God for the light that shines in darkness and you're able to see it. Thank God for the light that breaks in. When we were sinners in need of mercy, the light broke in. When we were sheep in need of a shepherd, the light broke in. When we were in darkness, there was a light that shined that was in the beginning and said, let there be. And guess what? There was. And I believe that light still shines and breaks through. No matter what you're going through, just look to the light. If you can see the light at the end of the tunnel, that means the tunnel will end. That's why I'm glad this morning for the light that breaks in. How many of you glad for the Lord's light that breaks in? When the light gets in, everything in the dark will be seen. When the light breaks in, our children will get a proper education. When the light breaks in, our sons and our daughters will learn valuable trades like plumbing and electrical work instead of knowing what it's like to be incarcerated and locked down for 23 hours when the light breaks in. That light is Jesus. As we stand up this morning,